Supreme Magus, Chapter 92. Solo's Surprise 2. After a bit of chit-chat, the Count was forced to return to his daily routine. He had to manage both his and the fief that once belonged to his late wife's family. Even with the help of his children, it was still a mammoth task. He knew very little of the neighboring Mila County, and most of the old retainers were either corrupt or untrustworthy, resenting the Lark household for what had happened to their previous lord. Even after 4 years, there was still a lot to do and a lack of loyal personnel. Lark had resolved to split the counties, giving Lustria to his son and the Gishal lands to his daughter. That way, both had the opportunity to make their spouses marry in the Lark household, allowing them a much ample choice. Lid could not believe that both the Count's children would have an arranged marriage, while Elisa had been able to spend her life with the man she loved. Nobles had an easier life, but even that came with a price tag. Their personal life had to be sacrificed in the name of the responsibilities that their title involved. Having still a couple of hours before having to return home, at Solo's insistence, Lid went back to the withered zone, allowing Solus to take one more her proto-tower form. That was mean on her side, you know. What did I do wrong this time? He sighed. I said that we have 2 labs. Yet, you didn't even glance at the alchemic one, not even once. Maybe because I have no idea how a master alchemist works? It could be a room filled with gold bars or candy canes. I could not make head or tails anyway. This time, Lid entered the second door, right in the alchemic lab. It was different from the Forge Master room. It was full of stills and small bottles. There were a lot of glass jars, each with its own tag, marking the ingredient they were supposed to hold. Yet, just like the day before, every one of them was empty. Lid walked among the jars. Some were for trivial things like wood shavings or metal beds, while others were labeled with exotic monsters or magical creature body parts. Fur, claws, horns, everything seems to have a use for alchemists. Impressive, Lid admitted after examining what seemed like a production line. But I still don't get it. Fine, let me give you a recap of the first lesson. Suddenly, Lid found himself in Solo's memories, surrounded by ghost-like shapes that he supposed were the students attending the lesson. It seemed Solus hadn't paid them much attention. They were so blurred to be unrecognizable. The professor instead appeared so real that Lid would have not been surprised if he turned towards him and asked what the heck he was doing there. Hello, my dear students. My name is Palm Raffler, and I'll teach you everything you ever need to know about the art of alchemy. He was a man in his early 30s, about 1.75 meters tall, with short blonde hair and gray eyes. He had also perfect teeth, white enough that Lid almost expected him to shoot laser beams every time he smiled. The tight-fitting clothes revealed a fit, muscular body, full of vigor and energy. He was by far the most handsome man Lid had ever seen. Some of you may have heard that an alchemist is the cheap copy of a forge master. Alas, that's not entirely false, but it's not true either. The reason because the 2 classes are scheduled together is because I am not going to lie to you. I won't sugarcoat any aspect of this job. So, if at any time you want to leave and join the Forge Mastering course, you can do it. After a second, since no one was moving, Raffler continued talking. First of all, you have to know that I am new to this job. The old professor, like his Forge Master colleague, had almost managed to make this class die. Alchemists already have a poor reputation, coupled with a belligerent fool, and you get a recipe for disaster. Most students choose their specialization courses based on what their parents want or what their heroes do. Do you remember a story with a valiant alchemist as a protagonist? Well, me neither. The crafting department has always been the ugly duckling of the magic, and I don't see it changing in the near future. At least legendary rings, weapons, and armor had to be enchanted. So, albeit with a secondary role, Forge Masters appear in those stories. That leaves us completely out of the picture, to the point that many don't even know of our existence. At this point, many should be asking themselves, what I am doing here? Or, why should I take this class? His dramatic pause worked. Lit was eager for an explanation. The answer lies here. Raffle opened his left hand, revealing what it resembled an orange-flavored jelly bean. After letting the students take a good look at it, he backstepped a bit before throwing it against the far end of the wall at his back. As soon as it hit the wall, the jelly bean exploding, releasing raging flames. Only the class safety measures allowed the students to remain unscathed by both noise and heat. That, my students, was a Tier 3 fireball. Without letting them recover from the shock, he took out a wand and with a flicker of his wrist, lightning crashed one after another against the wall in the same spot the fireball had struck. And those were Tier 3 lightnings, all cast in rapid succession from a magic wand, with no casting time or mana consumption. Raffler then took a pause, allowing them to understand what he was saying. As I told you before, I'm not going to lie to you. Being an alchemist is an amazing job, where forge masters are like artists, spending lots of time and energy on every single one of their creations. We alchemists are like bakers. The fruits of our endeavors are not made to last, cannot be passed down through generation. They must be prepared quickly in huge batches and for an affordable price, saving countless lives every single day. While laymen just sort us crafter based on our products, calling forge masters permanents and us consumables. I see our jobs in completely different light. Forge masters work to build a better future, but alchemists are the ones nurturing the present. All that you are going to learn here makes the difference on every single battlefield, be it skirmish or a war. Healing potions are vital for soldiers alone on the front lines. A handful of fireball seeds can turn a battalion into ashes, or if planted by hand, secure a perimeter. That's true. They can be used to create minefield, Lit exclaimed. The great advantage of alchemy over forge mastering is that anyone, even non-magicians, can proficiently use the things we create. Not to mention, the price is much lower. On the other hand, though magical items is forever an alchemical one, cannot be recharged. Another big difference between the two disciplines is that alchemical spells require relatively low mana, so each one of you will be able to whip up quite a few things before needing to rest. Questions? What use do ingredients have? Asked a seemingly female voice. Good point. You see, while Tier 1 can be bottled up as they are, from Tier 2 and up, a focus is needed for spells to retain their potencies. For example, the fireball seed I used earlier requires fur of a fire using magical beast, a phoenix rose, or any other ingredient with high fire affinity. The most valuable ingredients have all been found with trial and error process, so feel free to experiment on your own. Next question. I've seen in the prize haul physical enhancement potions. Why I have never heard about such spells, and why those potions have side effects, said a male voice. That's an excellent one. The problem with such spells is twofold. First, their cast time is absurdly long. The best alchemists can cast one of them in around 1 minute, and their effect lasts only for 3 minutes. 1 minute? Lit was flabbergasted. Then they are useless. That makes them useless in real battle. Raffler's memory confirmed Lit's assumption. That's why it's much better bottle them up and save them for a later use. Remember, alchemy is the art of always being prepared. With enough time, one of us can have access to the equivalent of several mages' worth of spells. As for the side effect, injecting someone else's mana in your body is akin to poison. Even Tier 1 physical enhancement spells require ingredients to mitigate such effects. They are the most expensive and useful portions for a mage. That's why the prize haul only sells the Tier 1 kind, to avoid students wasting points and focusing more on the permanent magical tools. Alchemy is easier to find and, more importantly, to afford. Those of you that do not belong to really rich noble families would not be able to afford magical items for a long time without the point system. Any more questions? Students asked for explanation one after the other. Lit wasn't that interested in the finer details, so he made Solus fast forward until the professor gave a demonstration of an alchemic spell. He stood in front of what looked like a huge separating funnel, connected with several glass flasks in a production line identical to the one in Solus' lab. After a minute, with just a single spell, he filled the funnel to the brim, revealing several ingredients that had been placed within it, that were now being slowly absorbed by the magic liquid before it got transferred into flask. See, Raffle said, 10 speed-enhancing potions for barely a minute of work. They would cost 100 points in the prize haul, or 100 gold coins in a shop. Even deducing the cost for vials and ingredients, the net income would be around 80 gold coins. Then he proceeded to show how to create fireball seeds before putting an end to the lessons. Lee didn't know if to laugh or cry. This is all so complicated. Between my two other specializations and true magic, I already have a headache. It will take me years to understand alchemy. I just do not have the time. Maybe and maybe not, Solus replied. Even in my ring form, I have access to both labs, and in my free time, I have been experimenting with alchemy during the last month. When I'm not in tower form, I have little mana, so I can only practice for a little before needing to borrow yours. Anyway, if we manage to get our hands on formulas and ingredients, I can prepare the simple alchemic items on my own. For the others, I will need your help, and once I learn things, I can teach them to you. Well, yeah, our mining would speed up studying it, but I would still require practice and comprehension for. Wait a minute, you had access to the labs? That means you practiced the whole magic circle thingy right off the bat. Oops! Solo's mind surged. You got me, guilty as charged. And why all those students were so faded in your memories? It's like you never focused on one, any, or even none. Even the floor was pictured in more detail. Your perspective never moved from Reflar. Thanks to their mindling, despite she had not a physical body, he could feel anxiety and embarrassment leaking from the surface of her mind. Solus, don't tell me that you have reached puberty too or something. Absolutely not, she yelled in a non-convincing tone, her voice gone up an octave. That would explain a lot. The constant pestering me about girls, the nagging about the lack of romance. I don't nag, she replied, offended. Then I don't glare, he scoffed. Lid was about to mention the possibility of her having the hots for the teacher, but preferred to back down. If he was right, prodding her further would escalate the joke, leading to an argument. He really hoped to be wrong, though. Solus having such feelings was one of the things Scarlett had warned him from. Whatever was her nature, longing for intimacy, but lacking any means or even feeling human contact, was something too cruel to bear.